Okay, let's talk about the Nuggets. Can they get ring number 2 with Jokic still viewed as the best player in the league? I believe he is. I think that's the consensus. This whole vid is just going to be the questions around Jokic pretty much. We have no questions about Jokic. He's that dude. A million things have been said about KCP being gone. Christian Brown's taking over that starting spot. They got Russ now. They picked up Saric. I'll get to that later on in the video. We are going to start with Jamal Murray. He was not good in the Olympics. We all know he was up and down in the Wolves series. Was really good in that Game 7, but there were parts of that series where whether it was Ant or Jaden McDaniels or Nickeil Alexander-Walker or just him having to deal with Gobert helping off of Gordon, there were just some of those games where he just looked lost. He could not create separation, get around screens cleanly in some of those games, especially that game 2. Like, that game still rings in my head so much of just how bad they made the Nuggets offense look, right? But still, they got it to a Game 7. And the Wolves needed an insane comeback in order to win it. And so, okay, maybe Jamal Murray will be fully recovered from all of his injury stuff going into this upcoming season. They're going to need it, right? Because when you look at the West, between OKC picking up Caruso and then already having Lou Dort and Cason Wallace and Chet protecting the basket and J-Dub who's good defensively, I mean, OKC is going to be the king of deflections and blocks and all that. I mean, they already were this previous season, and the I-Heart-Chet lineup is very interesting versus the Nuggets. Can't forget SGA with the steals. Jamal Murray, he's got a lot of good defenders to deal with in the Western Conference, okay? I mean, the Wolves are going to be right back there again. You have Dallas, where it's been said a million times. Derrick Jones is gone. Najee Marshall's here now. Quentin Grimes is here now. Lineup management between those guys and Klay Thompson for more defense or more shooting. We'll just see all that in time. Their rim protection, of course, is great. And so while, yes, of course, a simple Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic pick and roll or DHO is unstoppable against a lot of teams, and what feels like especially the Lakers in crunch time, Murray's still going to have to be at peak health. And we can't forget how crazy he's been at times in the playoffs. I mean, that bubble series against the Jazz, some of the difficult shots he's made against the Lakers, and he's entering his age 28 season, so let's not act like the dude's over the hill as far as age. He'll be 28 in February. Another reason they're going to need peak Jamal Murray, besides like, duh, you need that, is that the Nuggets do fight the math a bit because they're towards the bottom of the league in free throws as well as three-pointers per game. Now, granted, being to the bottom of the league in three-pointers per game means you're still getting like over 30 attempts per game in 2024. But still, it's that combined with the free throw attempts, and they've been able to play through it because Jokic is amazing, and him and Murray's two-man game's so good, and MPJ's shot-making, KCP's, as well as Gordon's finishing, the whole thing, we get it. And so far, at least, Christian Brown has not shot threes like KCP has, right? Now, Julian Strawther, they're hoping he can be a shooter. We'll get to him later on in the vid. The point being is, again, they need peak Murray. As far as, like, Gordon, listen, we know what Aaron Gordon is. He fits in beautifully with this team. There is one specific defensive style that few teams can really do, which is have a great help defender playing off of him. However, we all know the Wolves have that ability, Gobert helping off of Gordon. And then also OKC probably has it now with the I-Heart and Chet lineup, right? I envision it as I-Heart guarding Jokic, Chet helping off of Gordon. And that's still going to be a challenge, because I do remember in that series the Nuggets choosing to then have Gordon either be more of a ball handler, which pulls Gobert out of the paint a little bit more. I mean, I get it, like, you're still daring Gordon to shoot, but you gotta, like, care about him somewhat, especially the Nuggets' free-flowing offense. But then also, like, having Gordon screen for Jokic and stuff, you know. Again, they're still right in the mix for being a contender. Let's not act like just because certain teams are now equipped to put the best possible defense against them, that doesn't mean they're going to beat them. They're still going to be extremely hard to deal with in a playoff setting. As far as Dallas's possibility for the double big thing, looking at some playoff minutes, Kleba played 120 minutes combined with either Lively or Gafford in the playoffs, and that was with him getting hurt in the middle of the playoffs, so the number probably would have been higher. Maxey shooting, it comes and goes. As far as Lively being a help defender against the Nuggets, yeah, I think you can definitely put him on the short list of guys that can make a difference if he's able to free roam a little bit versus that Nuggets offense. But still, with how good they were at help defense and like leaving guys open on the perimeter and daring skip passes throughout the playoffs, but then still like closing out really well. I mean, the things they were doing defensively to force OKC to take more threes than they really wanted to take, like, it still was like wild stuff to me. Just want to see what that looks like versus the Nuggets. And of course, very possible you're also seeing just Lively or Gafford guarding Jokic in the post. And you know they would bring help. Again, their rotations are very good. And we did see them have PJ Washington on Chet for possessions in the round 2 series against OKC. PJ on Jokic is very different than PJ on Chet. As far as the loss of KCP goes, like, yeah, Christian Brown's going to fight and stuff. And I will talk about it more in like 2 minutes, trust me. Losing a very good perimeter defender while you got to deal with Luka and Kyrie and SGA and Ant in this conference, yeah, it's not ideal. And sure, the Nuggets, their defensive coverage of Jokic higher up on screens, and then they help out of the opposite corner off of that. They've gotten so good at that, it feels like they can do it in their sleep, although it does feel like from their championship season, they have kind of gone back and forth between that and Jokic dropping on screens more. but having as many good perimeter defenders as you can helps with that, and also Luka can make any pass you ask him to make. I realize that the Nuggets in a playoff setting have to deal with more than just the Thunder, the Wolves, or the Mavs, but for the sake of this video not being 100 minutes long, like, I'm not going to get into every single possible matchup thing between the Suns and the Lakers and the Grizzlies, and so yeah. And also the Lakers are just cursed against Denver, we all know that. Suns have a few things to prove first with now a hopefully healthy Bradley Beal and a couple good point guards in Tyus and Monte. A lot of good teams I'm not mentioning here. The West is loaded, you know that. I gotta talk about MPJ. So he was not good against the Wolves. His shooting was very good against the Lakers. I did do a video for one question of every West team. I did a whole spiel about MPJ, basically wondering if he has had enough time removed from the back injury at this point to where, I should say more than one back injury, to where perhaps there's another level to get to for him as a scorer. Kind of like, you know how Clay would generate so many just good looks at the rim in like his peak days with the Warriors? Just off of movement and handoff actions and cuts, etc. Like maybe MPJ could get a little bit more of that because his finishing numbers are already good throughout his career. I don't know. I mean, he played 81 games in the regular season. He had another 12 games in the postseason. There's a chance that it's just not really worth talking about. Maybe he's just hit his peak because of the back injuries. At the least, maybe he can just get his three-point attempts even higher than they've been. But with how we saw him in that Wolves series, and then you think about him versus like an OKC or a Dallas, just these really good defenses. Like, if he's not going to be able to just consistently create separation against these tough defenses and he's going to have to just make tough shots all day, we know MPJ can shoot, but you get it. And now finally, let's talk a bit more about Christian Braun compared to KCP, and as well as like some Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther. I can talk about Westbrook as well. We all agree that losing KCP is a negative for them, but my lasting image of Christian Braun was him pressuring Ant whenever he had the opportunity to guard him in that Wolves series. There's caveats to that. It's not like he guarded Edwards for a million minutes in that series, and also they were doubling Edwards for good stretches of that series as well. But still, he's athletic, he's going to play very hard, and then offensively, like, it is a question if he can develop as a shooter like that. I mean, his percentages have been good, but not very high volume. KCP, of course, could flow within that Nuggets offense, take tough threes sometimes, pull-up twos, and having his own mini two-man game with Jokic on a lot of DHO actions. And so we'll see where Christian Braun gets to as a shooter, but as far as his cutting, offensive rebounding, straight line drive plays off of Jokic DHOs, like, he should be able to give the Nuggets some of that, which is cool. As far as Strawther, he did have some injuries this previous year. He just wasn't a big part of the rotation, but dude can shoot, and it's more than just like open catch and shoots. Like, he's got range. If you look at like some of the shots he was taking and making in Summer League, is just that type of player existing in the Nuggets offense. Like, we get it. You don't need me to tell you a whole thing. I guess the question with him is more so like, can you rely on him just for consistent, solid possession to possession, just ball handler stuff, or is it going to be more like, yeah, we kind of need you as more like an off-ball guy? Peyton Watson, I mean, the physical profile is there if he's not pretty much already there for being like a good, solid like defender, whether it's switching, whether it's help defense. 7-foot wingspan. He got to 1 block a game, averaging 18 minutes a game. But the jumper just has to get there. I mean, it feels like every team has like 1 or 2 of these guys on their roster. It's like, well, if the jumper can get there, then I can see him getting real minutes in the playoffs. I mean, he did play a bit in the Lakers series. He didn't play a whole lot against the Wolves. Now let's talk Westbrook. And I do think the fact that Westbrook is here perhaps shows a little bit of how Denver envisions Strawther, at least day one in the rotation, just how they use him and stuff. Anyway, for the regular season, I think with Russ at this point, having him off the bench, there's going to be some games where he just brings a lot of energy to the team, just running like a madman in transition or pulling off some like steals on skip passes. I mean, he was still at 1 steal per game this previous season. And then hopefully converting enough like catch and drives in the half court or doing well enough on the pick and roll possessions you do give him. I mean, we'll see how often he plays with Jokic. Dario Saric is here, so yeah, maybe Saric will be screening for Russ some. But still, there's going to be those games where teams just not guarding him from outside or him just not shooting well is going to be rough, and especially in the playoffs. I remember possessions where the Mavs just had Maxi Kleber guarding Russ, quote-unquote guarding Russ, meaning not guarding Russ, in that Clippers series, where he shot 26% from the field. Yeah, Kawhi was hurt. That affected things in that series. But I guess my feelings on Russ for the Nuggets is regular season, I think it'll be fine. Playoffs, I'm not as optimistic about it. So anyway, that's the Nuggets. Basically, they're still really good. Definitely still have a shot for ring number 2. Jokic is amazing, but there's more questions now. So yeah.